Hello YouTube, Ronan Kazi, legendary capital gameplay. So I'm going to show you some gameplay. I kept the first part of it because it was horrific. And I wanted to show you that it was horrific and what not to do when you're out there. You're going to see a couple of things. Areas you shouldn't fight from because they're exposed and you're getting grenaded. If you shaping the battlefield, if you push in the middle, the enemies will spill out on the sides and flank you. So there's some things that you shouldn't do. A lot of people want to get up high to shoot down on them, but that's not what this first fight is. I think the way to get past this, if you're going to do that, is run all the way forward. I owe you a video on that. Recently, a friend of mine, Ultimate Shield 340, you can check out his channel below in the comments, asked if I talk more about Occam's razor because I mentioned it in passing when I'm talking about troubleshooting. Occam's razor is a problem-solving principle, and it recommends searching for explanations that are constructed with the smallest possible set of elements. What does that mean in real English? In real English, that means the simplest solution is sometimes the solution. For example, let's talk about cattle mutilations. Nothing I don't have a horse in the race on that. Cattle mutilations could be caused by the farmer themselves, farmer's family, people in the area, the military, government agencies like the CIA, government agencies like the CIA, plus aliens that are trapped on Earth, aliens that are coming from Alpha Centauri or whatever else, time travelers. So Occam's razor in that setting helps to filter out all of those possibilities to what's probably the simplest. Now, that's not saying that Occam's razor is the best. It's a part of the troubleshooting thing. I don't think it should be the main one. And we're going to talk about why it shouldn't be there. We've just wiped. Thanks, YouTube. This is normally when I ask you to subscribe, share, like, comment, ring the bell. Please help. I'm asking for help. All right. So one other example, if you think about, there's a gentleman, David Politis, who talks about missing 411, does a Can-Am project. There's a lot of people that kind of try to make content off his content. But basically, he has done a study using data of missing people in national parks, and he has a very firm set of criteria that is what he searches on. When he gives the explanation to people who don't research what he's talking about will say, maybe it's a serial killer, and maybe it's a runaway, maybe it's an animal, and he has explanation for all that. He has cherry-picked a set of data where he has a really filtered set of criteria that meets being put in one of his books. And so that's good in that case. You know, the stuff he talks about is unexplained. Why is Occam's razor good? It's good because it helps you cut through a lot of possibilities. At every minute, at every day, you have an infinite, I believe you have an infinite amount of, you do have an infinite amount of possibilities of what you do. You normally only do a certain subset of those things based on, you know, your past experience and all this other stuff. And I would say you have free will to do that, but you may have tendencies that make you not necessarily do that. You might not necessarily do whatever you could do. You might have patterns that you do. Different talk for a different time. So in all these infinite amount of possibilities, you might, I don't think Occam's razor is keep it simple, stupid, but you might keep it simple, the KISS principle of things, you know. How you do things, you try to do it simple, repeatable. Occam's razor is, you know, when you have a set of things, what's the simplest kind of thing? In science, right, they do that. You'll see there's a certain aesthetic to having simple formulas, that E equals MC squared, that explains, you know, a large part of the universe, we think. And that's it's elegant in its simplicity, so people strive for that. But when you try to, it's like in sales. It's like selling what you have in stock instead of selling what the customer wants, right? So instead of selling you what you want, where you come in and say, I want this, that, or the third, you end up saying, hey, I have this nice Ford 500 that I can sell you, because that's what you have in stock. And so always trying to shoehorn things into the simplest kind of thing, that reduction ties your hands, because not everything is simple. Some things are complex and some things are best explained complex with complexity. Think about quantum mechanics. It's a series of different kind of things that we give you examples of. The double slit experiment, right, where a photon shows that it's a wave and a particle both at the same time, but when you observe it, you force it into the particle mode. But when you don't observe it, it has wave characteristics. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. There is no simple explanation for quantum mechanics. Quantum entanglement, which Einstein was against. And then I think, I could have this wrong, but he proposed with two other scientists a way to prove that entanglement wasn't real, and then actually just proved that it was even more real. Kind of the opposite of what he wanted to have happen. Quantum tunneling, which I've talked to you about before. In the sun, how does one of those photons get out of there? How does it get out of the sun, the gravity of the sun? And part of it is this probability. So a probability isn't simple. The thought of probability isn't simple, but explaining reality. At what point, what makes it go there? If 10% of the time I can quantum tunnel, or 1% of the time, how does that one time happen? Like what? Right? It's not so simple. And that with pattern recognition is really used wrongly, is really a dangerous game, because what that does is it leads you down assumptions that might not necessarily be true. When I talk about pattern recognition, that's how you profile things. Sometimes profiling things is good. I'm profiling apples, so I'm looking for apples that don't have any bruises on them. Versus I'm profiling people based on a set of criteria, which is bad, because not every person isn't an apple. So Occam's razor is good. If you look at the Wikipedia entry, when you go down to the bottom, when you look at, in math and science and everything, it's just a ton. And so people will try to fit explanations to bolster their underlying philosophies a lot of the time. And so there's not a lot of universal truths. And you would say, well, we know, no, we don't. You think about, I'd like you to go out and look at the discoveries that the James Webb Telescope is doing now, and it's changing the assumptions we had before. I think if you talk to a scientist one-on-one, they would say that in this big world of things, I'm only looking at this one slice. And then there's no way I'm saying that this one slice, this narrow slice of all the myriad of possibilities, will explain everything in the world. I think that's people, the writers, the reporters that transmit that out. Think about all the time through history where people discovered something. Think about Newton. For years and years and years, hundreds of years, we thought Newton, his description of motion in the universe was right. And it's right on a macro level, but it might not be right at a quantum level. So how do we put those together? And so if I'm a Occam razor fan, then I'm always trying to fit that together. And when it might be a complex answer, but I don't accept that because it has to be the simplest answer. Sometimes the simplest answer is the answer. So that's kind of Occam's razor. It's a powerful tool, but it's not the most powerful tool. It's in a tool set. The most powerful tool is asking yourself why. And then Occam's razor can help you filter or prune all the answers. But again, the danger is how far do you prune? So how far do you reduce something to make it fit the problem at hand? Furthermore, reduction, if you want a general term in philosophy, Western societies have been a deconstruction of the universe into smaller and smaller parts. Eastern philosophy is a realizing bigger and bigger that you're part of a whole. So, am I looking at Occam's razor from my cultural bias? I sure am. Some other points I'd like you to consider. If you ever look up, I think it's called the ultraviolet problem. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to do a little research on it. But when you get to Planck's constant, Max Planck's described the smallest unit of size the universe can be. Sounds like a pixel to me. Right? So do I make some suppositions from that then? That if, the universe is not infinitely small. When we talk about black holes, we say they're infinitely small. But if you believe in Planck's constant, they can't be infinitely small. That's defined as the smallest. Right, so we have some contradictions in science. And you know why? Because we can't observe that. And this is no fault of science. This is no fault of me, because if I don't know the exact stuff, I apologize. I can go look it up. But it's something for you to consider. Occam's razor is good. I have 3 dogs, Roxy, Caesar, and Macy. If they poop in the house, is the answer, because they were mad at me because I didn't pat them on the head? Is the answer mad at me because they didn't like the food and it was protest? Is the answer that we didn't let them outside? Maybe. Is the answer we fed them too much food? Maybe. But you can automatically see, it's so ingrained in you. It should be so ingrained in you to do a filter pass through some of those things. And think about if you could do that. If you don't assume your spouse is doing something bad to you, if you don't assume your kids are doing something bad to you, if you assume your parents aren't doing something bad to you, from your perspective, it may be bad, but from their perspective, it may be they care about you and they're trying to do something that you just don't realize. So, Occam's razor, thank you, Ultimate, for asking about it. Hopefully that explains a little bit better in a philosophical sense. And again, that's part of a problem-solving toolkit that you should have. This is Ronan Kazi. Thank you, YouTube. I'll see you soon.